Okay, well now we're on to graphic design. This one's called 1 Year Later, number 21. I wondered if this was graphic or photography, but I was never familiar with Fortnite until the past couple of years, being educated by a young 7 and 8-year-old on Fortnite. And I was informed last night that these are all the characters from the very beginning of the existence of Fortnite to this moment in time. So that's some informative information I was received by the young mind of an 8-year-old.
Okay.
So this is 1 year later. And I think it represents like some of the transitions of how the characters have built up from the first character being developed. And you can see some of it in sequence of how they shift visually. But from what I understand, the characters have a day versus a night face to them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you got one that's a little bit more subtle and then the other one more scary. I don't know if that's the right word to choose for it. Like I said, this is a new educated process I received.
I like the purple skeleton guy that's exploding in the background. On the right hand.
Oh, I see that now. Back
He's
in
way
here.
in the back.
And he's also back over here, shifting.
Oh. Okay.
Like I said, it's these transitions of the same figure based.
I do really like their use of color. Like the colors really pop. There's a lot of contrast.
Well, and the repetition and balance of rhythm, almost like the shift of the rainbow, so that your eye just kind of flows in and out through it too.
And there's so much going on. It's like I discover something new every time I look at it. I just want to keep looking at it.
Right? Then there's this like, I don't know if you can see that with it's really dark and all teeth with a bone like bow tie. And then the foreground in this figure almost looks like an image of Sonic Hedgehog. But like I said, I'm not familiar with Fortnite. I'm learning. But for graphic design, the digital aspect of layering and rendering of layers, I think, is a nice quality for sure. And there's a nice balance of color transition and harmony going on. I like the little repetition of heads in the background here. Do you have anything to say about it? You're still looking at it, I can tell.
More and more stuff.
Yeah, you can look at this one for quite some time for sure.
Yeah.
So
lots of interesting pictures and values and
robotic images of the same characters. This one is number 11 and it's graphics called New Dawn.
Okay.
I seriously was thinking this was going to be a pastel drawing, but it is digital graphics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always baffled and like super impressed by some of the digital drawings and paintings that I see. You know, it's like magic.
Right? Well, and this kind of creates a magical scene. Like anybody that's a hiker would only wish they could come across a scene like this where you know, you kind of just get swallowed up in the magical, mystical aspects of Mother Nature and the way this brilliant light that's being casted behind the waters and how it's casting these intense shift of color on the natural formation on the logs, where you get like a blue reflection from the sun. I was really enjoying that quality and control of color. I almost wanted to see more of that with the trees though, instead of all of it being one continuous same color of green, where everything else has got all this color shifting. Even the figure kind of gets lost, but I don't know if that's as important as the way the overall nature scene seems to be more of the more predominant subject matter of this piece. So I'm not bothered by the fact that it's this arbitrary blue kind of figure in the foreground. Definitely a whimsical mystery, something you'd see on a cover of a novel.
Definitely.
And again, shocked that it's graphics, digital. I really thought I was gonna see this chalk pastel, colored pencil, mixed media approach going on. And the title is wonderful too. New Dawn. Yeah. Do you have
I
anything?
really like making in the leaves.
Well, and there's a nice sense of balance between the two sides shifting as well.
Right.
And this one is called Faces. These are paintings we're going to be looking at. Photographs
and
of paintings.
What number was this again? Sorry.
Number 7. I don't think I said the number yet. Sorry.
That's okay.
This one is called Faces. And I think it was acrylic paint. Some of it, I wonder if there was, when I first saw it, I thought maybe some of it was magazine collages painted on over to create this color spectrum and shifting of faces visually. And I like the color spectrum and shifting, thinking of the rainbow itself, and the fact that they chose to not have them all visually the same, and the cutting and format of sometimes just incorporating the eye or shrinking the entire head. There's some nice shifting quality of perspective and sizes that make it more interesting, and even the color balance of the choice of where they're putting their reds and their yellows and greens, allowing the eye to shift and move around in this warping circular formation of eyeballs and faces. I wish this part wasn't right there. Kind of cuts off the piece itself, but there's some really nice quality going on in it. Again, I would love to see this in person, because especially with, you could see it more in the yellow values of the control of her color choice, or his color choice. I shouldn't assume it's a girl that did it, although seeing the name. But especially in this yellow piece and this yellow figure, you can see that they have a sense of control of how the color value is going to shift based off of the lighting and the perspective to give it more of that three-dimensional quality. And that's why I kind of wish I could see it in the real deal, to see if that quality is still happening in some of these darker pieces. You can see some light reflections happening, but you're losing this nice control of value that you're seeing in these two figures more so. And maybe it was intentional to only have certain figures have that transitional shift. Even the boldness of this red figure, it's so three-dimensional, and you know, you almost could pinch your nose.
Right.
Some nice qualities going on. And then you get this soft, subtle, almost abstract quality of the hair flowing and losing the visual dimension of the face. Has got a nice quality of it like fading out.
Definitely.
You have that look of contemplation, so I'm waiting to see if you have more to say about it.
No, I just keep seeing or looking at it, and I keep, and you know, when I was like that graphic piece that we're looking at, it's like one of those things where it's like the more I look at it, like the more information like I'm processing, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at each of the, you know, the faces of the individuals, and you know, I keep thinking about, you know, how much that, you know, they, you know, like the monochromatic color studies for each one, and you know, yeah, it's interesting. Very interesting.
Right. And well, and like I said, in the details, some of it's more detailed than others. Like every little eyelash or eyebrow, and even like some highlights of the cheekbones here and there. There's some really amazingly nice study qualities going on of observation and lighting and how it affects the formation of the face itself.
Definitely. It would be a really nice piece to see in person.
I think all of these pieces would look amazing in person more. I even don't like the photographs of my own work. It just loses texture and depth and quality. This is a watercolor painting, number 23. And it's called Beyond. This one I did think was watercolor. I finally got it right by visual slide. But again, the photograph makes it appear more like acrylic versus, or maybe even gouache versus watercolor, because, you know, photograph kind of flattens out the colors and you miss those nice water level qualities that watercolor has.
You know, I don't think I have number 23 in my folder. Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you should. Beyond.
I got ahead of myself. I apologize.
It's all right. Mine weren't in order, so maybe yours aren't in order either. But
I have to. I got a bunch of
seeing
weird notes.
the photograph up close here, there's so many neat textures going on, even in the background into the blues where the white interlays in with the blue sky, that it becomes little specks of stars, as well as that same quality is happening down into the lower part of the atmosphere and shifting into where the light is cascading on these shards of rock or mountain formations with the little trees down below.
Right.
And I like their choice of how they manipulated the planets, or maybe they're different shifts of the moon. I shouldn't assume that they're planets. It could be different phases of the moon itself too. But there's tiny little phases happening in the background as well. I like the repetition and rhythm of overall going on between the foreground and the background. Gives it a lovely, nice sense of space and the shift of color value, creating that spatial atmosphere too. That's really nicely rendered in this piece.
Definitely. Yeah, and the washes are so nice on it too, like in the planets and in the background.
Right. Again, another piece that would visually be very pleasing to see with the real eye, the real deal. But nice study for sure.
But like seeing the values like in the sky, and then like the the organic quality from the washes, there's such a great sense of depth. And then once you look at the mountain or like the spacescape, or maybe they're mountains, but seeing how controlled and the the contrast to that too. It's
Yeah. Yeah, very nicely done. And the title works well with this piece as well. Enjoy that. This one is number 13, called Yellow. I can say visually, I've seen this piece, and it's bigger than this photograph portrays. How big, I can't really say. I want to say it was at least 24. Like, it's definitely a larger scale than what you're seeing. But this one's called Yellow. And it's acrylic paint.
interesting.
Yeah. I like the concept of repetition. I mean, obviously an octopus has its own repetition, but taking these two different ideas of organic shapes that are from two different worlds colliding into one is a nice visual concept. And when I saw this piece on display at Northern, it has a lot of texture like a Van Gogh painting, if I remember correctly. That was also a nice little quality that you don't see from the photograph that I thought I would share with you on that level. And they're in the dark spaces, especially in the larger sunflower, there is a lot of purples and blues portrayed into the piece itself too. The color handling and rendering overall is beautifully handled. But again, the way the positive and negative space with any visual viewpoint of an octopus is always intriguing. The part that intrigued me even more was this, the two different entities and creating this repetition of the tentacles of the octopus also being incorporated with the visual center of a flower is a nice concept too. And how they chose these nice little peaks of the red and pink, balancing that color shift and harmony.
Definitely. It's also interesting thinking about, you mentioned, combining two different worlds, with the octopus and the sunflower, and seeing how, the outline of the octopus and then seeing how they rendered the sunflower to, go around its tentacles and
Yeah.
all that.
Well, and naturally, sunflowers, like how they will twist their heads or their necks towards the sun, they almost have that kind of like lifelike tentacle feel that an octopus gives anyways. So I like the two ideas collided together.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And I feel very fortunate I actually did get to see some of these pieces in life at Northern. So that's kind of fun. This one is a lovely little piece called Montana Winter, number 29, also a watercolor, which you can see more of the watercolor effect on this piece too, for sure, even in the photograph. I keep thinking I'm going to trip over that cord. I like the subtlety. I mean, overall, winter has that cold feeling, but you still have some of those cool colors that can kind of shift into a warmer value. And they did a great job on capturing this feeling of chill in the winter days of Montana, between the sky and the mountains and this little water bank. And I like the shift of the line and texture variation going on in the flow of the mountains to create that depth. I almost want to see more of that in the trees. There's just not as much attention to detail going on compared to the way they controlled the watercolor overall within the rest of the picture plane.
Right.
And then there's these nice, subtle, strong line details of control that's really nicely rendered.
I like the trees at the foot of the mountain and the sense of depth that it creates.
Like, are you talking about this little line of trees or these bigger ones?
Like the little guys.
The little ones, yeah.
And even like the little bits of trees you can see through the trees in the foreground. But I definitely agree with the line quality that you're mentioning in the trees in the foreground.
Yeah, I would love to see this up in person because of visually there looks like there's some really interesting texture going on the layering of the watercolor in the mountains that would probably be really lovely visually in person. And you know how the watercolors kind of have that little flair to kind of almost create your trees. If there was a little bit more of that in these foreground trees, I think it would really balance out the overall picture. Do you have more to say on that one?
I think the media lends itself really well to the sky too, like with the airiness of the clouds, and it also it definitely conveys like a cold winter scene.
Yeah, you get that feeling from it for sure.
Definitely.
This one is number 15, acrylic, and it's called Bird. I've had the privilege of seeing this one too. The brush quality of this acrylic painting is really nicely rendered as well. There's a nice control of small versus large brush marks and handling as a painter. I really appreciated this piece when I saw it, the real deal. And the fact that they captured these, the visual twist of like the bird's head twisting. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got kind of a multiple viewpoint almost. You know how some crazy birds, when they're moving really quickly, you kind of get this abstract visual effect, which I liked the quality of this bird in general, but even the handling and control and confidence, not only of the color, but the brush marks themselves. Overall, there's a lot of strength and confidence in the painter, whoever created this piece, that I found really lovely. Not to mention that I'm particular towards birds.
Right.
As a subject matter.
Really impressive. They create a really nice sense of depth too, like the around the black, like on the chest and on its wings and on its cheek, like.
Well, that and you can see the feather quality of the layering of the texture just by how they controlled the brush. It said between like a fat, wide, smooth brush mark to a smaller, shorter strokes. So there's a lot of control to the painter as they're observing their subject matter that is nicely rendered, and the way that they allowed some detail to shift into more of a abstract quality, because it's not necessary to pay attention to every detail surrounding the subject matter, which is a nice choice too.
Definitely. It's interesting that they use mostly primary color, with the exception of orange and a little bit of green, I guess. But definitely gives it a kind of a, I don't want to say a playful quality, but it gives it it's an interesting color scheme, that's for sure, or color pattern.
It's eye-catching.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Window or Bridge. And it's acrylic paint. It's got some nice layering quality, especially down below. You can see those layers of washes on top of each other. Some palette knife usage, it looks like, too.
Sorry, what number was that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not say it? Number 3.
Number 3. I
just went straight to the title and I got all excited that it's the real deal. It's canvas.
All right. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So seeing the real deal, you can see the layers and the washes, as well as the thicker top surface quality of the paint. Looks more like it was a palette knife painting, more so than brushwork, which is fun to always create that loose quality with an abstract piece.
I love the palette that they used.
Yeah, it's kind of got that muted. Since it's the real deal, I'm thinking I'm going to just turn it a couple different ways. You can see it. Could almost take it to another perspective, which can be challenging when it comes to abstract paintings, because they can be viewed in every direction. However, sometimes they just have a more of a strength in one direction over the other. And in this case, I'm guessing they spent most of their time creating it in this general direction just by the way the flow of the paint layers underneath the surface is showing too. But there's these nice, subtle, brighter colors from this mixed mutation of the colors interacting with each other. That's nice quality. But I love the looseness of this particular piece, which palette knife tends to give that more of that freedom where you can scratch and remove and put it right back onto the canvas and on another spot to create texture. I love that little signature. Although 2020 is upside down, so maybe it was supposed to be like this. Do you know? It's hard to say.
So as far as the as the texture to it, does it have kind of a gloss? Do they use like a gloss medium or a matte medium with their acrylic?
It looks like it's just straight up acrylic. It doesn't have any extra sheen to it.
Okay. Gotta ask.
I'm guessing whoever created this had a lot of freedom and fun with the expression of the movement of the application of the paint itself.
Oh, I bet. I can't get over the palette. I love the colors.
Yeah, it's a nice control and not all straight from the tube kind of appearance to it.
Right.
I like this minty green in the corner to help break up some of the balance to it. Very nice. Okay, this might be mind-blowing to you. I wasn't sure if this was a digital piece or a digital painting, and it's the real deal on canvas, acrylic paint. One Summer Night, #2.
Okay.
I'm pleased to know that this is an actual acrylic painting now. Because from the photograph, I didn't know if it was digital or photograph, digitally enhanced. So to see it on canvas with acrylic, there is some really awesome control and quality going on in this piece. Not only with color, but even the control of the brush and the mud coming out from the back of this dirt road bike motorcycle. And there's a graphic design kind of quality that you might not get to see in your visual aspect. The sky is actually playing with the positive and negative space to the rider on the bike, which is a nice control. And this like sense of a sunset coming through with these bright, bold colors to this darker night sky interplaying while they're, playing in the mud. I like the quality of this piece for sure.
Right. There's two. I mean, like there's the smoothness of the sand dunes, and then there's there's the organic quality to the sky, and then the stippling from like all the dust and dirt behind the dirt bike. Yeah, there is a lot of excellent control, especially like with all that detail, like on the
motorcycle, on the cyclist himself.
Yeah.
It shows a lot of different qualities that an artist should be able to have in rendering and painting between, those flat, loose, organic shapes to something more realistic and controlled. It's a nice combination overall.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like there could be a little bit more push into some of the coloration of the clouds and the sky that a sunset does, that is happening to the land and the sun itself. But my eye keeps going straight to that motorcycle itself as the key focal point, and it almost has that silhouette into the sky shifting into the night that's got a nice quality to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like I can hear him revving his engine.
Right? You should see it up close too. There's so many details, and even the spokes, they almost become little parts of the splattering.
Wow.
And then this back tire, you can see all the little grooves of the tire itself.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty intriguing on that level.